Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dr. Patmos. It is May the 8th, 2026, and I have another resume review for you. For those of you who don't know who I am a board certified internal medicine physician with added qualifications in infection control and hospital epidemiology. I've been a practicing physician for 45 years. Uh, Over the course of my career, I've had the opportunity to serve as a physician executive for a number of healthcare organizations. And as part of my work as a physician executive, recruiting physicians and other healthcare providers was one of my core responsibilities. In fact, I've had the privilege of recruiting over 200 doctors and other healthcare providers, nurse practitioners, and physician assistants over the past 25 years. Most of those 200 are physicians. So, as a result of having recruited so many doctors, I have had the opportunity to review thousands of CVs and resumes from physicians. And um, I enjoy reviewing resumes. I find it really inspiring to see the kinds of accomplishments that many of my colleagues have. And I also find it somewhat concerning when there are things in a CV that don't make sense or that just don't seem right. For those of you who don't realize this, most headhunters and recruiters really don't dig into CVs and resumes. Their desk is flooded with resumes. They do a quick 15-second scan, and if it looks like it's good, it goes in one pile, otherwise, it's tossed out. And then they'll go back and look a little more deeply at the CVs they have saved, and they may call a few employers to do some background check, and that's really about it. They don't spend hours scouring resumes. They just don't have the time to do that. There are no headhunters who do thorough vetting of resumes and CVs. There's basically a presumption that the CV is going to be largely true and accurate. And in fact, when you apply, you sign a thing that says that you certify that the information on your application, including your resume, is true. And people sign that, but who really checks? Well, I do, because I have found that it's fascinating when you start digging into resumes. It turns out that no one does this. There isn't a consistent, systematic way that resumes are reviewed. State medical boards will do primary source verification, and if you apply for medical staff privileges at a healthcare system, they will do primary source verification. What that means is that they verify that you have the degree that you claim that you did. If you got your MD degree from University of Nevada School of Medicine, they confirm that you did in fact get that degree. They will also confirm in primary source verification when you completed your residency, when you were board certified, where you did your residency, and so forth. But that's really pretty much about it. And primary source verification really just verifies that you have the credentials that you say you have with respect to degrees, licenses, board certification, and so forth. They will also, and somewhat in an inconsistent fashion, spot check your resume and make a few phone calls to confirm that you were in fact employed somewhere where you claim to have been employed. But that's really about it. No one actually goes much deeper than that into the resume to sniff out what might be embellished or questionable. Now, I think it's important to do that because we know studies have shown that about 50% of resumes contain significant embellishment. I don't mean just a little exaggeration, I mean significant embellishment. In fact, a disturbing number of resumes and CVs actually have outright fabricated content. And I think this really becomes important if it's a private entity that's hiring a hospital. They have some duty to the organization and to the public to be sure that the person they're hiring is who they say they are and has the credentials they claim to have. But it's especially important when that person is a public figure, someone who is relied upon by the federal government or state government when it comes to public health policy. And when that level of reliance is evident, it becomes doubly important to really fact check and dig in to resumes and CVs to see exactly what's in there. Now, I do resume reviews, and just a word as a caveat here: nothing in a resume review is hard fact. All of this would need anything I find needs to be vetted and verified by someone else in an official context. These are informal resume reviews. All my goal is here, and all I'm doing is raising questions, not making statements of fact, but simply raising questions about areas that need further clarification or further elucidation. So, with that, let's dig into Dr. McCullough's resume. He's got a very impressive resume, no question about it. He's got a lot of really very high level qualifications and credentials. He's a residency trained internal medicine physician, fellowship trained cardiologist. He has a master's degree in public health. He's held a number of very lofty positions. He's clearly a very highly qualified individual. Having said that, there are some curiosities about his CV that I think warrant further clarification. For example, it says at the very top of his CV that he's a fellow of the American College of Physicians and American College of Cardiology and so forth. But he's got one on there that I don't quite understand. He says that he's an FRCSA. Well, that would, to the best of my knowledge, stand for Fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons of Australasia. Now, I don't know of any other medical organization that goes by RCSA, the Royal College of Surgeons of Australasia. Maybe there's others. I can't find any other one. The only one I'm familiar with is the Royal College of Surgeons of Australasia, and Dr. McCullough claims to be a fellow of that entity. Well, that one is curious because the Royal College of Surgeons of Australasia, in order to be a fellow, you have to have graduated from a training program in Australia or New Zealand as a surgeon. Dr. McCullough is not a surgeon, and nowhere on his CV does it indicate that he is a surgeon or trained as a surgeon. He certainly didn't. Nowhere on his CV does it indicate that he is um, that he trained in Australia or New Zealand. So I frankly don't understand the FRCSA, and I think it's incumbent upon Dr. McCullough to explain further what that means. As far as I know, what it means is Fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons of Australasia, and I don't see how that fits with his resume. Certainly a question I have for him that requires some further um, elucidation. Another thing that we look for on CVs is we look for double dipping or duplicate overlapping positions because it's hard to do that. And his CV shows that for a period of I think 2 or 3 years, while he was a cardiology fellow, he was also working as an emergency room physician. Now that's pretty, I guess it's not impossible, but it's very unusual. When you're in a fellowship, you're very busy. That's a more than full-time job being a cardiology fellow. You're on call. You have a lot of work to do. It's hard for me to imagine being both an active ER physician and a cardiology fellow simultaneously. I suppose it's possible. Maybe you only worked 1 or 2 shifts a month as an ER doctor. That could possibly explain it, but I think it's another one that requires a little more explanation. Then the next thing we look for in CVs is short duration positions, basically jumping from job to job. And Dr. McCullough's CV does have some flavor of that. He spent 3 years at Henry Ford, 2 years at University of Missouri, 8 years at Beaumont Hospital, 3 years at St. John's, and 6 years at Baylor. So his two longest stints were at Beaumont Hospital for 8 years and 6 years at Baylor. But the other three stints were quite short, 2 years and 3 years, which for a doctor is very quick. It's kind of odd to come into a hospital and be gone in that short a period of time. His departure from Baylor is a very interesting one because that one got a lot of press. He left Baylor in 2000 after signing a confident. By the way, all of this is in the media. This is all public domain. He left Baylor um, uh, uh, after signing a confidential separation agreement. Now, he was on the medical staff at Baylor, and I believe he worked for the Scott and White Clinic, which is a Baylor affiliated medical group. And he was the vice chair of the Department of Internal Medicine for, I guess, 6 years at Baylor. And he left abruptly in 2020 for unknown reasons. Those um, reasons are not for public disclosure. This was a confidential separation agreement. Now, why does this mostly happen? And this is uh, just in general, doesn't specifically relate to Dr. McCullough. We don't know why he left, but typically physicians leave a medical staff with a confidential separation agreement if they have been booted off the staff by the peer review committee. And typically, that's really how this happens. When you're a member of the hospital medical staff, you're a member of the organized medical staff, which is an organization that's separate and distinct from the hospital. It is governed by the physicians, and it has a governance structure, and they're required to have peer review. And the peer review committee will basically evaluate physician performance and behavior. And if it's determined that a physician's performance is questionable, they can require remediation. And if it's worse than that, or if the physician refuses to remediate their performance, then the peer review committee can remove your hospital privileges. We don't know why Dr. McCullough lost his hospital privileges, but all we know is that he resigned, and it was a confidential separation agreement, was widely publicized in the media. However, afterward, he continued to use his former affiliation with Baylor in various presentations that he was making all around the world. And it's so much so that Baylor filed a lawsuit against him in 2020, seeking damages and requiring that he cease and desist, falsely claiming to be affiliated with Baylor. He filed a countersuit, and they settled out of court. The settlement was that Baylor dropped their demand for compensation, and McCullough agreed to stop saying that he was on staff at Baylor. So it was kind of basically a draw, and McCullough just promised not to falsely claim that he was on staff at Baylor anymore. So that was that. But it's very curious as to why he left Baylor, and we'll never know because that's a matter of confidentiality. Is this confidential separation agreement? So we'll never know. But can always speculate. The next area of interest on his CV is his publications and his other activities on various committees, and as a journal editor, and writing textbook chapters, and serving on various research committees, and speaking around the world. And there's a paragraph below that summarizes it, and it's really mind-boggling. In a 240-month period of time, basically 20 years, Dr. McCullough claims to have published 633 peer-reviewed articles. Now that's mind-boggling. That's on average, three peer-reviewed articles per month for 20 years. I don't know how anyone does that unless you're just getting your name on work that others are doing. But to get to publish 633 peer-reviewed articles is an astonishing number, and to do an average of three per month for 20 years is really mind-boggling. And in addition to that, there's all these other things that he was doing at the same time, writing numerous textbook chapters, serving as a reviewer for 120 some journals, speaking around the world, an average of 18 times per year. I don't know how you do all of those things and maintain a practice. It just boggles my mind. I would love to know more about how you have to be superhuman to have accomplished that kind of level of productivity. It's an really unmatched level of productivity. I've looked at many CVs from the top professors at the top medical schools in the world, and most of them don't have anything close to this. So it's an astonishing, really incredible level of productivity. Um, the next one that is of interest is that um, he unfortunately, in 2025, the American Board of Internal Medicine stripped him of his board certification in internal medicine and cardiology. And the letter that was sent to him by the American Board of Internal Medicine is publicly available, and I've included a link to it below. And it's a very, very disturbing letter. The American Board of Internal Medicine did a thorough investigation. They allowed Dr. McCullough to um, uh, reply to the investigation, which he did. And they determined, after a full and thorough investigation lasting for quite a period of time, that he so misled the public about with false information that he placed the public at risk. They concluded that basically he is a public health hazard, and they stripped him of his board certification. That is a pretty big deal. Rarely, I am a member of I'm board certified by the American Board of Internal Medicine, fellow of the American College of Physicians, and I only know of a handful of instances where anyone ever had their board certification revoked by American Board of Internal Medicine. That has to be really due to egregious unprofessional conduct. And in the ABIM's case, it's all clearly detailed in the letter below, which you can read for yourself. I think it's interesting because typically, if you are subject to a disciplinary hearing and there's disciplinary action taken against you, you have to disclose that when you apply for a license or you renew your license. Whenever you renew your MD license, there are a series of questions that you have to answer. And one of them is, have you been disciplined since your last license renewal? Have you been disciplined by any body or entity? And being disciplined by the American Board of Internal Medicine and having your board certification revoked is a significant action, should be disclosed. And one would think that the Texas Medical Board would require that, and that Dr. McCullough should have reported that. Well, unfortunately, his license is current on the Texas Medical Board website. I've shown a screenshot below, and it indicates that he's board certified, which he is not. So that needs to be updated to be honest with the public about what his credentials are. Finally, the last thing which I would point out is that Dr. McCullough has this, incredible long list of he now claims that as of now he has over 1,000 publications. Apparently, about 900 of them are in medical journals. But at least based upon his CV that I have a copy of attached below, which was, I think, valid through 2020, he claims 633 peer-reviewed publications. But very interestingly, he has a lot of retractions. 6 of his papers have been retracted or withdrawn, and they're all referenced below. That's a lot. Papers don't get retracted over minor errors. They get retracted because there's significant errors in methodology or things that are not correct in the paper or honest in the paper. It's a big deal to have a paper retracted. It's really a terribly embarrassing thing to have a paper retracted. Now, in this age of COVID anti-vaxxery, some people think that it's a medal, a badge of honor to have a paper retracted, but most people understand that having a scientific article retracted is really a slap in the face. I mean, it really says that the journal regretted publishing your work and is withdrawing it because it's not valid or there's something very wrong with your research. And Dr. McCullough has 6 papers that have been either retracted or withdrawn. I think 5 retractions and 1 that he withdrew voluntarily. So anyhow, that's the resume review for Dr. McCullough, and I hope you find it interesting. I think that people of that level, people who are affecting public policy. Dr. McCullough testifies regularly in Congress. He is a very well known expert upon whom the Congress relies, and much of our policy today regarding COVID and vaccination and who should and should not be vaccinated and so forth comes from Dr. McCullough. Dr. McCullough has repeatedly called for pulling all mRNA vaccines off the market, and he has a lot of support. Many Americans know who he is. He's omnipresent on social media and LinkedIn and so forth, and he's not without a lot of critics. But I think that you won't see a deep dive into his resume anywhere because nobody does that. There's no one who actually does. There's no federal or official entity, government entity that dissects a resume line by line. Um, I do. And I shouldn't be the only one who does that. I'm not doing this in an official capacity. This is an informal evaluation that I do of resumes, and I've come up with interesting observations, all of which are, none of which are hard and fast fact. They're all basically areas of concern and areas that need further elucidation. And somebody out there should be doing that. I don't understand why we don't vet the CVs of people who are holding public office or who are testifying before Congress as experts. If you're going to put yourself out there as an expert, I think your CV needs to be scrutinized thoroughly and it has to be vetted line by line. And someone should be doing that besides me. So anyhow, that's your resume review for today. And if you have any resumes that you would like me, public figures you'd like me to review, I'm happy to do that. Send me your suggestions. I have published resume reviews of Dr. Robert Malone, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, and Dr. McCullough and others, and Casey Means, for example, and the new Surgeon General nominee, Dr. Nicole Safir from Fox News. And so if you find these resume reviews interesting, then let me know if there's any others that you would like me to publicly review, if these are publicly available resumes. And other than that, stay skeptical, my friends.